December 30, 2022, a bartender in the Palomino bar in La Guajira, Colombia, drew the attention of visitors. Although he had a long beard and wore a cap that partially covered his face, everyone immediately recognized him as the man whose pictures had been seen everywhere recently. This bartender appeared completely calm and hardly looked like a dangerous criminal. The police had been searching for this man for 3 months, reviewing hours of video footage and receiving numerous tips from witnesses. The search spanned 2,234 kilometers, or 150 hours of driving time, covering 15 cities, and witness statements were gathered from Ecuador, Spain, and Mexico. There were 28 interrogations, and about 10 people had contributed to the capture of the man. After all this effort, the police could not believe that they had finally found and would soon arrest the murderer of young Maria Belén. Would they succeed in catching and imprisoning the feared criminal, or would he escape again, leaving the crime unsolved? Maria Belén Bernal was born on March 14, 1988, in Quito, Ecuador. From a young age, she was passionate about law and known for always fighting for the justice of others. This passion led her to study law at the Central University, and as an excellent and curious student, she soon earned her master's in criminal procedure at Simon Bolivar University and her master's in oral procedures at Western California Law School. Parallel to her studies, Maria served as an administrative assistant at the General Prosecutor's Office. Besides her studies and work, she had a young son named Isaac, whose upbringing was solely helped by her mother, Elizabeth. Throughout this time, Maria also cared for her grandmother, who had cancer. All this showed Maria as an incredibly strong and determined girl. Her neighbors described her as a very kind and generous woman, who often provided them with free legal advice, earning much respect. In 2017, Maria Belén married Police Lieutenant Herman Casares. The newlyweds moved with Isaac to the Kangawa area in the south of Quito to live there. At her new location, Maria joined the Grow Criminal Defense Firm, where she and 5 other women handled cases of abuse, gender-based violence, police defense, and child support. Maria lived literally to help people affected by abuse, even setting up a TikTok account to encourage people to report abuse cases. In one of her videos, the young woman recounted a case where she was a victim of a paternal relative and reminded her followers that abuse should not be ignored. Moreover, Maria advocated for feminism, posting a picture of herself on Facebook with the caption, "I was born to be free, not to be murdered." In 2021, when Maria was only 33 years old, she worked on the most high-profile case of her career, representing the family of Alejandro, name redacted, a man who died after being run over by a Metropolitan Transportation Authority officer in Quito. Maria proved that the police officers were responsible for the accident, winning the case and earning the respect of many of her colleagues. Unfortunately, she also made enemies. In mid-2022, Maria made a public statement in one of her TikTok videos, naming 2 police officers she believed threatened her life and health. Just a few months later, something terrible happened. The young woman disappeared on September 11, 2022. Maria Belén went to the General Alberto Enriquez Gallo Police School, located north of Quito, arriving at 12:45 a.m. in her red car. Although the visit schedule was not open, she was allowed to enter by identifying herself as the lieutenant's wife. After checking in, she drove to the building housing the officer's dormitory, taking only 5 minutes. She parked and went to her husband's room, hoping he would be alone, as they had an important conversation to have. When she entered and stood before her husband, she immediately noticed something that deeply shocked her. A visible mark on his neck, undoubtedly from another woman, indicating Herman was cheating. Fierce argument ensued between the two, with long-lasting screams and blows heard by everyone around them. One of the cadets nearby became suspicious and decided to report everything to the police chief, but received a sharp response to stay out of the couple's fight. Eventually, it became quiet, and everyone thought the argument was over. However, Maria's departure from the building was not registered, and no one heard from her again, not even the cadets present at the scene. On Monday, September 13th, Herman went to the National Police Directorate for the investigation of deaths disappearances, kidnappings, and extortions to report his wife's disappearance, as no one in the family had heard from her in 2 days. General Alan Luna, head of the police logistics department, took over the case and asked Herman to leave, assuring him that everything would be done to find the missing woman. The next day, investigators made an unexpected visit to Herman, asking for permission to search his room, which angered him greatly, and he refused. However, he soon agreed to cooperate and appeared at the prosecutor's office to describe the day he last saw his wife. Herman Casares stated that after a tense argument, they got into Maria's car together, but on the way home, they argued again, and she got out on Simon Bolivar Avenue to take a taxi. At the end of his statement, Herman arrogantly declared that he hoped the police would believe his wife had disappeared. Herman finished his statement at 2:40 p.m. and did not leave the police station until 2:45 a.m. Police officers had no reason to detain him, but they sensed something was wrong. They checked his statements and placed Casares under surveillance, only releasing him afterward. Immediately afterward, Herman met his parents and sister outside the prosecutor's office, got on his BMW motorcycle, and disappeared into the night. Early the following morning, police visited Casares' sister and announced they had obtained a search warrant and started searching. They found nothing compromising except the fact that the motorcycle Herman had driven away on was missing from the garage. This gave the police the opportunity to set up surveillance and tail the man. But it was too late, as the husband and main suspect in Maria Belón's disappearance gone into hiding. Due to Casares' actions, the police immediately removed the names of the officers Maria had mentioned in her TikTok video from the list of suspects. Everything seemed to point to Casares' guilt, so the investigators focused all their efforts on proving this theory. They questioned cadets present at the time of Maria Belón's disappearance, and one revealed that she had not been invited to the party that evening. After she suddenly appeared at her husband's door, they locked themselves in, and long screams and blows were heard from inside. An hour later, witnesses saw Herman Casares leave the room with a bundle of blankets. Other witnesses saw him load the bundle into his wife's car and drive off in an unknown direction. Police reports also indicate that the man left the building through the back door, not the front. The whole situation was very suspicious and needed investigation. Additionally, there were reports of more screams coming from Herman's room between 4:30 and 5 a.m., this time of a more intimate nature. Based on witness statements, the police obtained a search warrant for the lieutenant's room. During the search, they found empty beer bottles, bloodstains on the mattress, and strange handprints on the wall. Maria's car, eventually found outside the couple's house, was also examined with luminol fluid. The analysis revealed that the entire car was smeared with blood. The blood found was sent for a DNA test and compared with Maria's mother's DNA. Unfortunately, the result was positive, leaving no doubt that Maria was dead. General Major of the National Police, Fausto Salinas, ensured Herman Casares' dismissal from the police force, while the Interior Minister and the head of the police academy filed a complaint to include him in the investigation and guarantee the strictest punishment for Herman. Shortly after, the search warrant and arrest of Herman as a suspect in the alleged disappearance of his wife were officially issued. His picture was broadcast nationwide in all news bulletins. Alongside Herman's picture, the media also spread photos of Belón, urging the public to contact the police if they had any information about her whereabouts. Maria's mother, Elizabeth, refused to believe her daughter was dead until the body was found, leading the search operation and scouring the last known location of Maria. Elizabeth gained the support of several community organizations, collectively pushing for a better search for the missing woman to accelerate the process and finally uncover the truth. Maria's son, Isaac, was not left out, setting up a Twitter account to seek help in finding his mother. He stated that his stepfather was the last person to see her alive and that the police offered a $20,000 reward for information leading to his capture. At the end of this notice, Isaac wrote clear words directed at Herman, promising to find him even if he hid under a rock. Several days of intensive searching yielded results, and on September 21st, an event occurred that changed everything. Maria Belón's body was found just 10 minutes from the police academy in a ravine on the hill of Castilla. Maria was identified by the clothing she wore the day she disappeared, her tattoo. The forensic examination determined the cause of death was strangulation. Maria was strangled with a belt, but she also suffered severe head injuries. On the right side, she had a large hematoma that spread to her face, ear, and back of her head, and on the other side, under her hair, was another hematoma that led to a brain hemorrhage. However, the woman's body showed no other severe injuries to the chest, abdomen, pelvis, back, or arms. This fact contradicted witness statements that saw Herman carrying his wife's body wrapped in a blanket and dragging it to the car. The man couldn't have carried her the entire way, and if he had dragged her along the ground, there would have been many more injuries on her body. Investigators suspected that the girl's body was most likely dragged by two people holding her arms and legs to avoid further injury. It was also noted that although the body was discovered only 3 days after her disappearance, it showed little decomposition and did not even have the characteristic strong odor. This suggested the body was buried shortly before its discovery on Castilla Hill, reinforcing the belief that Herman did not act alone and had help from someone at the police academy. Initially, Cadet Jocelyn Sanchez, who was in the next room when the argument between Maria and Herman broke out, was suspected as an accomplice. The prosecutor's office immediately issued a warrant for her arrest, and the woman quickly shared her version of events from that terrible night. On Saturday, September 10th, Jocelyn attended a party hosted by her training colleagues. There, she encountered a very drunk Herman, flirted extensively with her, making her uncomfortable. Jocelyn couldn't refuse him, as he held a higher position, and she feared retaliation if she did. Eventually, the lieutenant asked her to accompany him to his room, and she obeyed as if it were an order. In his room, Herman received a call saying his wife had come to see him and he should speak with her as she was very angry. Jocelyn remained in her room, swearing she hadn't even seen Maria Belón. She said she had not slept for 21 hours due to her security shift, so she fell into a deep sleep and did not hear the sounds of the fight or Maria's cries for help. If she had witnessed the crime, she would have defended the victim, not as a police officer, but as a woman. However, further compromising evidence against Jocelyn was later found. Her lawyer handed over a video recording where Jocelyn confessed to having intercourse with Herman in the early hours after Maria's disappearance. Jocelyn later tried to justify herself, claiming the confession was illegally recorded and her words were edited. She also filed a complaint against her lawyer, demanding his disbarment for breaching confidentiality. It turned out that the video was not the only evidence of Jocelyn's knowledge of the crime. Her friend provided their WhatsApp correspondence to the police, in which Jocelyn mentioned the argument between Herman and Maria. A few days after this conversation and Maria's body's discovery, Jocelyn asked her friend to delete the messages. Through witness testimonies and evidence collection, prosecutor's office gathered at least 35 pieces of substantial evidence linking Jocelyn to Maria Belón's disappearance, enabling charges of complicity. The case resonated strongly with the public. Police officers were the main suspect. Soon after information about Jocelyn's arrest was released, the media and many community organizations publicly accused the police academy institutions of crime. Upon learning of Maria's body's discovery, her mother turned directly to the country's president, Guillermo Lasso, via a Twitter account, seeking justice for Maria. In her appeal, Elizabeth emphasized that the perpetrators were police academy members and that the main suspect was still at large. Dozens of civil society organizations, including feminist groups, held demonstrations nationwide, calling the Ecuadorian National Police to account. The public saw the murder as a state crime, committed in a police facility by on-duty officers. Maria's funeral took place on Thursday, September 22nd. She was buried at Mount Olive in Coma Santa. Simultaneously, a public assembly was held at the Central University of Ecuador Theater in Quito. where concerned people advocated for justice for the victim. Government authorities responded to the allegations, claiming Herman's act was an isolated incident that tarnished the institution's reputation. Interior Minister Patricio Carrillo made a sharp statement on a TV show, expressing regret over the crime and believing it was a common crime committed by an ordinary person. This statement caused great public outrage, shaking the foundations of the government system. General Freddy Goes, National Director of Criminal Police Investigations, and General Giovanni Panza, National Director of Civil Security and Public Order, were suspended. It is unclear why these generals were suspended, but it seems the president wanted to defuse the situation this way. President Guillermo Lasso also publicly announced that he had given police Major Fausto Lenas a week to produce final results in capturing Lieutenant Casares, and demanded Patricio Carrillo's resignation for his controversial comment. Lasso also apologized publicly, saying that as the Republic's president, he should not have allowed such an atrocious crime, especially not in an institution meant to train police officers to protect citizens. Furthermore, he ordered intensified efforts to apprehend the perpetrator. While Herman remained at large, public distrust in the police grew daily. Just as it seemed the man had escaped punishment, he was spotted by witnesses in Tulcan, a border town in northern Ecuador, near the Rumichaca Bridge connecting the country with Colombia. There, the man waited for several hours at the foot of a mountain, waiting for others to cross the border. On September 15th, Herman was caught on surveillance cameras entering the West Tunnel at Vio Medellin Santa Fe in Antioch, traveling without luggage and alone. On the 23rd of the same month, the police recorded a call made to Herman's phone. 6 days later, Ecuadorian authorities met with Colombian police to search for the perpetrator jointly. On November 19th, the area mentioned in Herman's phone calls at Lago Achira was investigated. On December 7th, the Ecuadorian police requested assistance from Interpol's Fugitive Unit and the Colombian Technical Investigation Unit. On December 30th, man's location was discovered. Witnesses identified him as a worker in a bar in Palomina. Herman was unrecognizable, now sporting a long beard and a cap covering half his face. However, he stood out when he thanked customers for their tips in Ecuadorian dialect. These customers decided to report their suspicions to the police, and he was arrested the same day. He offered no resistance, and the papers for his return to Ecuador were soon ready. Although the perpetrator had not yet testified, and the investigation was not concluded, the Ecuadorian president immediately declared after his arrest that the perpetrator would be punished to the fullest extent. As expected, Herman did not deny his guilt and was soon taken to the high-security prison La Roque in Lago Achira, where he detailed the crime. On the night of September 11th, Herman was under the influence of alcohol when he received more than 10 calls from his wife. When he finally answered, he heard Maria speaking angrily, upset about his condition, and said she would soon visit him for a serious conversation. When Maria entered the room, she immediately noticed the marks on Herman's neck and directly asked if he had cheated on her. Herman did not hide it, even cheerfully admitting to cheating on her for 5 years. Soon, the couple started shouting at each other, and at some point, Herman began hitting Maria. The woman called for help about 10 times. No one helped. To silence Maria, Herman used judo techniques on her and later strangled her out of anger. Around 1 a.m., Herman realized Maria was dead. He wrapped her body in a blanket and carried it to the car, leaving the body in the trunk. Next day, he continued acting as if nothing had happened. In his spare time, he went to the room where the crime was committed and tried to eliminate the evidence. In the evening, around 7:30 p.m., he drove away in his wife's car. His behavior aroused no suspicion, as it seemed like he was just doing his job. No one checked his room or car. He went to Casitawa Hill, dug a hole, and buried the body. Herman claimed he acted alone, without anyone's help. On Monday after the crime, he worked as usual until he received a call from his mother-in-law, asking about Maria's whereabouts. Herman replied that she had gone in an unknown direction after their argument, and he hadn't heard from her since. Elizabeth insisted he file a missing persons report. Herman hesitated for several hours but eventually did so, hoping to divert suspicion. After describing what happened that night, he exercised his right to remain silent, refusing to answer his lawyer's question, believing his punishment was inevitable. The trial began late as new evidence continued to emerge. Maria Belón's phone recording was discovered, capturing her screams and cries for help, stating she was being killed. She was. This recording was kept secret and also influenced Jocelyne's conviction, proving she was not present at the scene during the crime. Although it is still unknown how much Jocelyne knew about the events, she was eventually released from custody. After her release, she gave a speech thanking the women who supported her during her imprisonment. At the same moment, Elizabeth interrupted, telling her that she must feel guilty for Maria's death for the rest of her life, as she had a sexual relationship with Herman that day and did not respond to the cries for help. It is currently believed that 3 people are involved in Maria Belón's death: Herman, Jocelyne Sanchez, and Police Lieutenant Alfonso Cacho. The latter was charged for not acting during the crime, although he was in the same building and should have heard the screams. Herman is the only one serving his sentence in La Roque prison. His lawyers demand their client be convicted of manslaughter and not femicide, as the man acted under the influence of alcohol. Although the 3 people were convicted, the entire police force was involved, as none of them intervened in the crime. On January 15th, prosecution's investigation phase ended. It is expected that the prosecution will request a date for the evaluation and preparatory hearing to decide if all those involved will be charged. All Ecuadorians are closely following the case. Thousands of women hope Maria's murderer will receive the harshest punishment, and the case will be classified as femicide. Society also hopes this case will impact the prevention of domestic violence and the actions of law enforcement agencies, which should protect people, not let them die. Thank you for watching, subscribe to the channel, and take care of yourselves. See you in the next video.